The next guy, Derrick Henry. It's timeless, isn't it? Every single year we write off Derrick Henry. This is it. His career's over, and then he produces, and then he produces. Last year, he finally got injured. Yeah, everybody's ready to jump back on that bandwagon and say, right, Derrick Henry's the guy again. Is this the year that Derrick Henry finally rides off to the sunset?
I mean, it's just really difficult. Like you say, we've been doing this for a few years, and it's, December rolls around, Derrick Henry gets hot and shoves it down our throats. But he is coming off a career best 2.8 targets per game and 4.5 forced missed tackles per game, as well as he's not showing necessarily signs of slowing down. Like last year, his time to the average time to line of scrimmage was 2.7 seconds, which was the fastest of his 7-year career. But so much of this comes back to the fact that I just think the Titans are going to be a complete dumpster fire this year. And DeAndre Hopkins saying that he chose the Titans because he believes they could win. I just don't buy it. He chose the Titans because he had no choices. Nobody was going to pay him what he wanted outside of the Titans. He wanted to chase a ring. He couldn't do it, so he ended up there. And when you look at this team, like Pat Foreman, who's an offensive line guru for Establish a Run, in his projections for this year, he has the Titans' offensive line as stone cold last in this. And the one thing he comes back to is that they haven't invested well in this position. They're not paying any elite stars. And it's just going to be really difficult for Ryan Tannehill to stay upright and for Derrick Henry to get clean avenues to run. So I really struggle with it. I think, his rushing yards per contact per game hit a 4-year low, and the same with rushing first downs per game. At 29 years old, I'm just more in on Tajay Spears at cost. Give me one of the other. If I'm spending a round 2, round 3 pick on a running back, there are other guys who I'm feeling far more confident in, who have less tread on the tires, and I'd much rather go with them. And then if I want a running back later on, Tajay Spears is again one of those kind of hero 0 RB targets that you can add in.
Yeah, I think for me, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. I don't care about Derrick Henry, the player. Being a running back in the NFL is so much about every other piece around you than just you. Now, for fantasy purposes, it's fine if you're on a bad offense with a bad offensive line, if you're going to see 5-6 targets a game. We know that's not Derrick Henry's game. He is so reliant on rushing the ball. Last year, of backs that saw over 100 touches in the running game, he had the worst rushing yards before contact at 0.8 yards before he was contacted. He needs a competent offensive line more than most, because he is not he needs to build up that speed to get going in order to go. If he gets contacted in the first couple of yards, that's it. It's game over. He's not one of these agile backs that's going to be able to make somebody miss in space. He needs that good offensive line. And you've said it perfectly. This is the worst offensive line in the league. They did so little to address it in the offseason. And I just can't see a world where Derrick Henry is going to get the rushing production to pay back on the cost you're having to acquire. And there's no receiving upside. I don't see a world where he's suddenly going to get, can break the story of his lifetime and suddenly start seeing 4 or 5 targets a game. It's just not going to happen. So why are we paying up to go and get a guy that we're saying is at the end, coming towards the end of his career? The offensive line is awful. There's no great excitement around him, and he's not going to catch passes. So yeah, I'm very happy whenever I see anybody else select him in pretty much any format, to be honest. It always makes me happy because it's a guy that I don't have to draft.